Welcome to Horror Makes Us Happy, the podcast where we ask the question, what is it about horror that makes us happy? Your hosts are Steve Becker and myself, Chris Whitman, and you can find out more about us at our website, horrormakesushappy.com. Before we get started, this is the trigger warning. This is a horror podcast, so we talk about horror things. We could talk about sensitive subjects such as violence, foul language, and other of the ilk, but that being said, it's not the entirety of the show. It's actually more of a psychological delve into what
You've been warned.
So you've been warned now, and now we can use foul language like dingus. Anyway, Steve, what do we got coming up?
Same stuff as always. Number of people on the guest list, not going to go through that. We host 3 or 4 events weekly on our Discord server. There's a link to that on our website. Chris mentioned horrormakeshappy.com. If you want to join us there, just go there and click the link to join our Discord. But today we are talking to Mr. Neal Edelstein, producer and director, best known for his work with The Ring, Mullholland Drive, and Dark Hearts. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
You. Before we get into the meat of the interview, you want to let people know what you're currently working on?
I'm in a constant state of development, which has been going on for maybe 30 years.
I mean, that is your job.
Yes. Currently not in a production, but and I don't want to say I'm close, but I could be close, which is, the producer's lifestyle. And there are an array of horror things. There's always The Ring possibly being rebooted. Mm-hmm. Hopefully with the clarity at Paramount now, we can get some momentum there. But nothing at the moment that I'm in the middle of, but there's some really cool things on the horizon and some great projects in development. In particular, a very scary script that I think we'll take to market here soon, me and a partner. So there's always the horror genre on the plate.
There's something amusing that I saw is listed as upcoming on your IMDb page. I don't know how far that is along in the process. Hairstyles of the Damned.
Oh, yeah. Hairstyles of the Damned is a Joe Mino script from a Joe Mino book that is a really cool script and a great story, kind of a coming of age story from the late 80s, early 90s, and touches upon that kind of post-punk music universe. It's almost like a darker version of a John Hughes movie. It's a great project. Joe Mino is a very gifted writer.
Well, hopefully that will see its way through to completion.
Yeah. Great title, right?
Yeah. Saw that.
Hairstyles
chuckled just on the title alone.
Yeah.
So
it's like what we were talking before the podcast started. You got a good name. You got to do something with it.
Yes, correct.
Yep.
Well, the theme of the interview will be less about your body of work and more about yourself as a horror fan. But that said, it's not meant to be a therapy session. So if there are any questions you don't want to answer, you just say pass and move on.
Sure.
But starting with childhood, what are some of your earliest memories of scary things?
No, that's a great question. Non-related to consuming media?
Whatever comes to mind.
Yeah. I don't know that I really had a scary childhood, but I would say that the John Wayne Gacy serial killer murders and John Wayne Gacy himself were in the background of my childhood.
Yeah.
And that was a really weird and disturbing thing. And it was this era. I was born in 1969, and in the 1970s and into the early 1980s, it was this era of like the white van driving around that was grabbing kids.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the Gacy of it in there. It's Bundy, I don't remember, but the serial killer thing was definitely there. And so I think the Gacy thing had, media was so narrow back then. You consumed media as a kid through the radio or the news at night. And I recall, obviously, the Gacy thing was a big deal. Now, don't ask me to remember what the dates of the Gacy thing were and where it lined up in my youth. I could look it up. But that was a frightening thing. Mm-hmm. But the white van driving around was freaky. And then I do recall, now that I'm delving into it, it was like Hare Krishna's driving around. And that was kind of a weird deal that like I couldn't process. I must have been really young. Obviously that was just like a thing that as a kid was just different. And I can't remember if it was all balled together. I must have been young, 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
But the Gacy thing I think was a biggie.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly for the audience, because we had a little conversation before we started recording. You grew up in the Chicago area, and Gacy was in that area, so even more present.
Really?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Yeah, the white van thing though, that's like is an archetypal. Just it was a boogeyman of the era. I think there was another guest that we spoke to that we're talking about kids being kidnapped in that era, and just the windowless white van was like an archetypal boogeyman at the time.
Yeah, and if you look back at it for good reason, there were a lot of people that committed crimes with those vans. Mm-hmm. And also, not to get too far down a rabbit hole, the Volkswagen Beetle or Bug? Which one is it? That vehicle was like the vehicle of choice for serial killers. Ted Bundy.
Wait, the Bug or the van?
The Bug or the bus?
The Bug.
Huh.
The Bug.
I don't remember that. Okay.
I mean, it's so inefficient. How many people can you fit in a Bug?
Well, depends on the clowns.
Take a dive into the Bundy stuff. Bundy used his, and there were others. It was like a pattern.
I mean, if anything, it'd probably be because it's disarming.
Right.
Correct. And it was cheap, and it was like, it was probably a mass-produced vehicle.
Yeah.
That could be a whole nother podcast.
Good.
Or it could be maybe Stephen King can turn it into like the prequel to Christine.
I like this idea.
Christine's little brother.
Yeah. Barry the Bug.
Gacy. So Gacy was 72 to 78.
Okay.
That was definitely in my earlier years, of course.
Mm-hmm. Still there.
I remember. That was a very weird, scary thing that you couldn't process as a kid.
Yeah. Especially as a kid, because you don't know anything really. I mean, all you know is boogeyman.
And this dude's, burying people in his basement.
Yeah, I've read about
it. It's a very a lot of crimes committed by him.
Yes. Yeah.
And the images were the news media was really good at just kind of walking you up to the edge of what they could show you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the theater of the mind is always more horrifying than what you can see, right? And the Gacy stuff was just the stories and the paper. The impact of the daily newspaper back then. You can't even. It was a big deal to get a newspaper, right? Everybody got the newspaper. And as a kid, you'd go for the newspaper for the sports page or what have you.
Comics.
But it was always laying out comics, of course. But on the cover of that paper was the Gacy thing.
The clown. Yeah.
Nonstop. Yeah, the clown. I mean,
when they get his pictures.
Yeah.
So, part of the thing, we've interviewed over 100 people now, and there are different paths that people go through life. Some people are horror fans from an early age, and some don't get into it until later. But aside from these, and we'll kind of go through this childhood, teen, and then adult years. Did you have any exposure to horror media as a kid?
I did have exposure, and I had exposure through two TV channels, and it was because of a babysitter or babysitters that would come on weekends. I was the youngest of 4 kids, and there were 2 channels on the UHF range, which were channel 32 and channel 44.
Okay,
and those channels would play creature features.
It's always channel 44. What is that?
Yeah, and 44. Don't ask me which is which, but I think channel 44 had like Son of Svengali, which was a brilliant show because the guy that hosted it was such a character. 32, I don't quite remember what the format or what the host was.
Ours was 32 as well. Like 28 was the main kind of news and pop culture channel. 32 was the slightly off-brand news and pop, and 44 was like the sitcoms. But both 32 and 44 had Saturday afternoon horror movie things.
Yeah. And 44 always seemed to be maybe a little bit more risky.
Adventurous.
Yes. Yeah. Like whoever was programming 44 was like, into like the darker stuff and pushed the envelope. It was, no one was manning the fort over there. They were just, there were no adults there. It felt like, looking back at it. But those two channels were the source of my earliest years of horror films.
Do any movies in particular stand out to you?
I thought about this. I remember seeing things. It clearly, I think Channel 32 had some deal with Universal. Like looking back at it from where I am now, I kind of understand how the media.
I think they were in the public domain.
Yeah.
Oh, were they the Universal
Might have
movies
been at
back
that
then?
point,
Yeah. I remember the Mummy movies. I remember Frankenstein, The Wolf Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon. I remember every so often there'd be like a 3D special event where you'd go get glasses at 7-Eleven, and it would be like Frankenstein in 3D or one of these movies. And that was a big fucking deal. Like that was a big deal. The night that you would watch a 3D horror.
Oh yeah, it's brand new technology.
Yes, brand new paper technology. But so I would say the Universal movies would have been like the Mummy scared the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little kid. I must have been 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. Pretty young. And so the media that touches you is so concentrated back then because obviously there was just television. I was not listening to the radio, like horror, programming on the radio, whatever that late night radio would have been if it existed, even if they ran that stuff then. So it was definitely those UHF channels, and it was one of the Universal movies. It had to be the Mummy and the Werewolf. I remember seeing those. The Frankenstein, I was never really a big fan of. It didn't really scare me. And then bleeding in, and this was maybe a little bit later, was stuff like Godzilla, Johnny Sacco and his flying robot, which was after school, maybe on Channel 9, maybe it was on GN, and that felt a little bit later, but then the horror started to come from that angle.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering if WGN was going to come up.
Was going to come up. You grew up in Chicago, Steve. Do any of these networks ring a bell to you?
Yeah. WGN particularly. I don't remember the channel.
It's so funny that the indie channels are like, it must be a UHF.
Well, the thing is that after we moved to Florida, you could still get WGN on cable.
So, yeah, that's how they became a behemoth, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the Cubs became a behemoth.
Yep.
Who?
Yeah.
So, what do you remember being scared from the Mummy? Would any particular scenes jump out to you?
I think it's not the scenes. It was just the notion of a corpse rising from a coffin and lumbering really slow, which is a testament to how those movies were made, and the tension. And those were black and white movies too.
Yeah.
So they had a patina about them that was very dated for me, even at that age, because I was going to the movie theater, but I wasn't being taken to horror films at the movie theater. My dad would take me to movies, but he wasn't into the horror genre. Okay. And he wouldn't have taken me. He would take me to Dirty Harry and Blazing Saddles when I was young, but not a horror film because he didn't enjoy the genre. But right. I would say the Mummy stuff was just really, it was just frightening because of the slow zombie-like nature, which later, feeds into Night of the Living Dead, which for sure was on Channel 32 and 44. Almost every Halloween, you would wait for it to come on. It was like a special on Halloween, which scared that was a watershed moment of horror for me. I mean, how many people have said that?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead is just a master.
How old were you when you saw that?
I had to be young. Okay. I had to be, I bet I was 5 or 6. When was it made? Wow. It's made in 68.
68? Yeah.
I bet I saw it 5 or 6, 7 years old.
Okay.
And it was always on Halloween. They ran it at other times, but that movie scared the living bejesus out of me.
Why?
It just felt so unorthodox. It was like nothing else I'd seen. It was obviously the filmmaking. No actors of recognition. It's just a different style of filmmaking. The score was horrific. That black and white, like in retrospect, probably lack of funds to light scenes really worked. There's I haven't seen the movie forever, but there were some disturbing things with, cannibalism in it, if you could call it that. Of a zombie. There was some beautiful stuff in that movie, and the performances were great. The opening scene is legendary.
Yeah.
So as a 7-year-old, you see that and you're just forget it.
Somewhere I have a T-shirt that is barely holding together because it's that old, but it's just the black and white image of Johnny reaching out his gloved hand.
Yeah.
I saw it in my teens at some point. I don't remember how or where I found it, but it was a double set VHS tape that had that and what was the name of the other thing? Think about marijuana.
Reefer Madness.
Thank you.
It was a back-to-back double feature of Night of the Living Dead and Reefer Madness.
Yeah.
That sounds glorious. I want to go see that now.
That's good programming.
Yes.
Yeah.
You also mentioned the Wolfman. What jumped out to you about that?
That's a good one. I think it was just the transition, that you had the concept of, it could happen to anybody if you get bit, and you can transition to this monster.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think the visuals were pretty cool.
Okay.
For a kid at that age.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But what did I know? That was like, that's what's served up to you.
Yes. But I mean, like you say, for the time.
Yeah.
So nobody else in your family were fans of horror. You said your dad wasn't.
No. My parents weren't, they weren't down for that stuff at all. My mother, no way.
Mm.
And my siblings, no, all older than me, different interests. Horror was not their thing.
Some of our guests have reported that there was sort of a dividing line where prior to this line, horror was scary to them. And then after that line, it was enjoyable to them. Was there a dividing line like that for you, or was it always?
Yeah, I don't know if I could point to the demarcation line, but I think the explosion of video stores and VHS tapes, right? And seeing what's on the VHS tapes, which was often very frightening and brilliant marketing, how they designed the tapes. Mm-hmm. And then this kind of verbal communication with your friends that became...
Did you see this?
Yes. And it's like contraband. And it's like, well, you can't, your parents aren't going to... Steve's mom won't let us watch that. You had to figure out what to do. How can we get it and go over to Edelstein's house or Ferguson's house, or, so it became like this. And this is a larger conversation. And I think about and talk about this all the time, which is, familiarity breeds contempt. And today we are overwhelmed with media 24/7. But back then, to get your hands on a videotape of like I Spit on Your Grave or Phantasm, like how the fuck did you get your hands on Phantasm?
Yeah, it was coveted treasure back then, because there's no internet, there's no streaming media. No. You had to, and these are rare even in like real life obtaining. So like you had to go to the underground grindhouse video store, and it was in the curtain room in the back.
Yes, almost near the porn. But the other problem you faced is it was not in. They maybe only had a couple copies.
Yeah.
So there was this scarcity of content that when you did watch those movies, you were so zeroed in because you weren't looking at a phone or a computer screen, and you didn't have a button to push that instantly moved you to the next fucking thing. So you lost interest. Could you imagine if The Exorcist came out today on Netflix? People would turn it off in 2 minutes. Nothing happens for 30 minutes.
Right.
But back then, and same with Alien, back then you were forced into the movie theater and you had to sit and watch.
It was more immersive,
It was totally immersive. And so that culture and the scarcity and the hype from your friends and people talking about it, build it up in a way that you had to watch it and go get it. And it usually was better than what you had expected.
Yeah.
That opened up a whole universe of stuff. And then, once you got through the obvious stuff, Phantasm, The Exorcist, go down the list of other stuff, Alien, all the great horror stuff, really great stuff. You then started
what else you got?
Yeah, and you looked at that, and you looked at the covers, right? You started to get into the
back.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct. And there were. I remember looking at books in the library of like going to look at books of horror monsters and seeing that. Oh, I remember that. It was a Dr. Phoebus, Dr. Phibbs. What was that?
It was the Despicable Dr. Phibes or something like that.
Yes, but the picture is so scary as a kid. I remember going to that book in the library to find that image. And it was so frightening, and I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
I think there was a Vincent Price movie that had.
It is a Vincent.
Yeah, it was a Vincent Price movie.
Yeah. But I can't remember what your original question was. But the explosion
about the dividing
explosion of video. I remember the VHS when we moved in our new house. We moved to Winnetka from Evanston. I remember we got a VHS player, and we had what was the other format player? That was even better quality. Beta. And I remember scrounging for those types of movies, right? And the scary stuff I loved.
Did you have a favorite Halloween costume when you were a kid?
God, I can't even remember what I wore. I don't think I wore the horror stuff. I remember the plastic stuff in the box with the window. Yeah,
Yep.
maybe I did do a horror thing here and there, and I put a mask on, and like it stunk. Like back then, all that shit was so toxic.
How about a least favorite costume?
I don't remember. Okay. I think I got out of the costume thing pretty quickly. I'm sure I dressed as a baseball player one year. Maybe I was a mummy. I'd have to ask my mom.
Okay. Not every question is going to land. Just never know until you ask.
Yeah.
Did you have any really scary dreams or reoccurring nightmares when you were a kid?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Was there ever anything in your childhood? Well, I guess we already talked about this with the panel van stuff, but anything that terrified you as a kid in real life?
No. I had a pretty sheltered upper class childhood. You know, it was the Gacy stuff. And I think in later years, I don't know, it didn't feel like there was anything that threatening or disturbing on the perimeter.
Okay.
Which is boring, I know. And maybe something will come to me, but that
on the other hand, it means you had a good childhood. So
right.
I did. Knock on wood.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time in your childhood when you felt exceptionally calm or safe or at bliss?
Always.
Good.
I had a great childhood.
Okay.
Knock on wood. I cannot. Yeah, I had a great, blessed childhood. Okay. Parents are still alive. They're getting up there. They're on the edge. I went to great schools in Winnetka, Illinois. Great education, quality friends. You know, when's it going to go sideways? I don't know.
That's why I was laughing.
Yeah. Knocked on wood. I mean, it's always time. But no, I've been very fortunate. I every day, man, no question, knock on wood. I mean, no, bad stuff seemed to happen on the fringe, you know.
So rolling into teenage years, any particular media stand out to you from your teens?
Yeah. I mean, you talking movies and horror? Or you talking everything?
Particularly horror, but if there's something else that really stands out to you, we can talk about that too.
We could get into the music thing a little bit. Horror-wise, certainly, I think this was the era when I was watching everything and anything I could get my hands on, and going to movies. From Halloween through some of the other movies we discussed, and then even diving deeper into some of the Argento stuff and European stuff that you could get your hands on, kind of widening my horizons from like American-based horror and the indie horror movies. You know, Phantasm was a big thing, and I can't remember when I first saw that. That was such a disturbing, brilliant movie. You know, years later, I met Don, which was like a highlight of my life to meet him and talk to him. I think it just widened out. The older I get, the less restriction there was from my parents, and I was able. And you know, you get into the DVD era, which I can't remember when that started, but it was just became more of a mass consumption, and you try to watch everything that you can get your hands on.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't recall pre-internet really what the information flow was in terms of how you read Rolling Stone magazine for movie reviews, which was big, and other sources for movie reviews. And you go to the theater, of course, see movies like Poltergeist, etc., which, you know, sometimes you'd sneak into an R-rated movie, but things just broadened out. And there's so many influential movies of that era. But I think movies like Alien, which is a masterwork, The Exorcist, of course. These movies you would try to watch multiple times, you know, if you could get your hands on it. And The Exorcist was scary as hell, right? Brilliant movie.
Yeah.
Anything stand out to you about that?
I think it's just one of the most effective films at bleeding, you know, fiction into the real world, in that it felt real, and that the feelings of the horror of that film feels like something that could actually be real. It like crafted a darkness and a horror that was tickled something inside of your soul. Like, oh, this could actually, not that it could happen, but that the darkness seems familiar. And I think that's the brilliance of that movie. Okay. And I also appreciate it on a technical level for its structure and its brilliance, and that it builds character. I think at one point I had timed it and nothing happened for like 30 minutes in that movie. Nothing scary. And maybe the first thing that was scary, if my memory's accurate, was that the birds are fluttering in the attic, but it was all tension, right? It also had the luxury of the hype around it. So like, whether you went to the movie to see it or you were going to watch it, you already had a tone about the movie. It wasn't like, what am I going to watch? Like blindly stick something in the VCR or, go to the movie theater with a, blindfold on. You knew you were going to watch something scary as hell. So you were set up for it and it delivered. And I just feel like there's a realism to that movie because I think everybody, or not everybody, but most cultures and many people have things that scare them. Mm-hmm. And that movie portrays darkness brilliantly. It gets a little unhinged towards the end, of course. It gets over the top, probably.
You also mentioned phantasm as being important to you. Would any particular scenes stand out to you from that one?
Well, the ghoul, the tall guy, the boy thing, it just, there was, and the filmmaking was so brilliant and kind of indie. It had an indie brilliance to it. I think there was some great nudity at the beginning too. When you're a teenage boy, there's tits. So you're like, awesome. It's another aspect. Like there's no doubt tits sell. I'm sorry. I'm sure people are offended. I don't really care, to be honest. But when you're a boy, that's part of the conversation. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's like, well, that's what we were talking about. How do you got to see this? And
girls like them too.
Yes, exactly. And so there was nudity in it. And that wasn't the prevailing factor, but there was just
it is a smorgasbord of just about everything,
Yeah.
That was also scarce back in the day.
Yeah.
It was scarce. And I think probably if you look back at it, there were all kinds of restrictions on how you handled it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Timing but that movie had a contraband feel to it too. And it had a really unique kind of filmmaking, like the spinning ball. I mean, this stuff wasn't being
right. I was going to say with the spinning ball, it had a unique, not antagonist, because that was a tall man clearly, but one of the enemies. Like, where the hell have you ever seen a giant chrome, or not giant, but a chrome murder ball with blades that come out of it?
Yeah. Right. Well, it's got that sci-fi component. Yeah. So it goes back into this kind of, I've never seen that before. What the fuck is this? Right. So if you're a kid, if you're like a young kid and you're getting a steady dose of whatever the horror is, the Wolfman and whatever other movies, and you're reading books that are like pretty generic, if you will, that are fiction as a kid. And then you see this, it was fucking out there and it was scary. And it was also had a California vibe to it.
Kind of did.
You know what I mean? It did not feel like a place you knew. It felt like kind of 70s hippie-ish California, which I think helped the vibe, which is just inherent because that's who the actors are and that's the location. So maybe that's just me in retrospect foisting it onto it. It just felt foreign and it was scary as hell. And that movie was very popular when I was a kid amongst my group. We loved that movie. And it's funny. It made you laugh. I think afterward you were laughing at it. Like, this is really fucked up. And there was a sequel and I don't remember much about the sequel. But
me either, unfortunately. I have to read it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more nudity in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Phantasm.
I wanted to ask about Argento. You mentioned him. Was there any particular movie that stood out to you from him?
Oh, I can't even remember how he got into my sphere. I wonder if it was somebody at the video store and the cover. I think he did at some point a Poe thing that may have been on Channel 32. Is he still alive?
I think so. We looked this up recently, didn't we?
Yeah. But he and I don't think he did that movie Zombie. I think that was Fulci.
Yeah.
I think Suspiria, I saw it, was in the video store. And it was, if I remember correctly, Suspiria and maybe one or two of his other movies had this like really brilliant graphic design that was like nothing I'd seen. And I'm sure someone pushed it at the store, or it was like front and center, like, you gotta see this. And I remember seeing Suspiria, and that was just a deeply disturbing, bizarre movie because it was European. It was brilliant.
Okay.
That's balled into that era, that window of time in the late 70s, 80s.
Let's see.
By the way, Argento is still alive, 85 years old, and sadly, Fulci died at 68.
Well, Fulci died at 68. What year was that?
96, looks like.
I remember. I mean, look at the movie poster for Zombie. I mean,
Mhm.
one of the greatest. I mean, you see that as a kid, you're like, where do I get this?
Mhm.
I mean, the greatest marketing ever.
That was the one that was the supposed to be the sequel to
Dawn of the Dead, I think. Yeah.
was it?
Or Day of the Dead?
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know that part of it, but I remember the poster.
Mhm.
So you said you had gotten out of costumes when you were pretty young. We can skip those questions here. Any scary dreams or recurring nightmares as a teen?
No, I never. I'm not a big dreamer. And nothing reoccurring other than like maybe missing a test or something at school.
Right. Okay.
You know?
Was there a time in your teens in real life when something was, terrifying?
In my teens?
Mhm.
No, I don't think. No, it's all pretty.
Okay.
I mean, there was the odd tragedy of someone dying.
Right.
But no. In college, I saw somebody die on a highway. That was pretty brutal. But that's not the question. But in high school now, there wasn't really anything too terrifying other than, alcoholic mothers and, things of that nature, more adult stuff that you would laugh at. But no, nothing. No. There wasn't like the serial killer around the corner or anything like that. The Gacy thing had faded. Yeah. I'm thinking about it though.
Okay. Well, something comes to mind, let us know. Was there a time in your teens when you felt exceptionally calm or safe or bliss?
I'd say always.
Okay.
Great. My teen year. I'm one of the few people that can say I really enjoyed high school and I was a terrible student.
Mm-hmm.
I was a shitty student, C student, just scraping to get by. So it was not easy for me, high school, in terms of my grades.
Mm-hmm.
But I had fun. I played sports, which I loved. I wasn't really exposed to arts. I was younger into the arts, and then in high school it kind of got bifurcated. You either had to be sports or arts, which is kind of sad because I think later in life I found hopefully knock on wood, I've found more of my creative stride, which I think was always there, and I think everybody has it. But so that's a long-winded roundabout way of saying I always kind of felt safe. I felt the pressure to not flunk out of school, which I didn't think would ever happen, but I was just a good steady C student.
Mm-hmm.
So there was never anything extraneous.
Okay. In adult years then, any particular media really stand out to you from your adult years?
Well, when I went to university, I would say without question, the thing that was one of the most impactful things was Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going out at night to the bars and to party and setting the VHS up to record Twin Peaks on ABC and coming home and watching it at like 11:30, midnight, 1, and just like, what the fuck is this? And I knew who David Lynch was because I had seen Blue Velvet. I don't know that I'd seen The Elephant Man, but it was just that was a major standout. I mean, I'd have to think about some other stuff, I'm sure, like Full Metal Jacket, which was much earlier. I remember going to see Scarface. You're talking non-horror stuff, but
Scarface had some horrific moments. That chainsaw in the shower, for instance.
Yeah, Scarface was kind of brilliant in a schlocky way. I'd have to think about the horror stuff in that era. I know I consumed it, but I don't know that it was. I've always loved horror films. I still do. But I'm not the guy that had the posters on the wall. Like I was never so into it that I was building the models, or maybe when I was younger, I was as a kid, but as an adult and like college, I think I would go see if anything that was a great movie that was a thriller or a horror film, I was all in. But I can't tell you, I'd have to go back and look at the late 80s, early 90s to see what horror films resonated or were great. I mean, the other movie which everybody attests to from that era is obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I saw as a kid too. And that was a really fucking disturbing journey too, somewhere next to Phantasm, right? In terms of its weird, odd style. But in my younger adult years, and I know you're asking about all adult years, I would say like Twin Peaks, and I consider Twin Peaks on some level a horror film. And there's such a scary tone to it, so disturbing. But I would have. I mean,
there's some dark material in that whole thing. Yeah,
and it's horrifying. It's really scary. Yeah. I think.
Any particular scenes really stand out to you from it?
Oh and I would have to say like any of the stuff down when they were at the river always intrigued me. Scene specific. I always thought the reveal was a little bit disappointing for me, but it was scary. You know, the stuff through the mirror. I just felt like the tone, the music, but scene specific. I haven't seen it forever. I watched the Return, but I never went back and watched the original weeks.
Okay. What got to you about the scenes down by the river?
I think it's probably the juxtaposition of the beauty of nature and the characters who were so well cast, of course, and then just, you know, where this event happened or where the body was found. Mm-hmm. Those things stuck out.
Okay. What about the stuff relating to, you know, Through the Mirror?
Just a different style of filmmaking. You remember just the visceral reaction to how he handled that stuff in the house when you see the killer in the mirror. Am I botching that? Isn't that what happened?
It's been forever. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't recall.
I remember just the reveal of the guy, the killer, and of course, I mean, that's like the standout moment. I don't know if I got it right, but
for some reason I'm thinking about the movie. I don't remember.
Yeah, which is not great. It had some nice stuff in it, but it kind of fell thin.
Yeah. What about Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Just bizarre, frightening. You know,
there's a word for it.
Just bizarre and frightening. Just this weird, the whole Leatherface thing in the house and the isolation. Mm-hmm. It just had it kind of walked you up to the edge of reality. It just kind of pierced through. You were watching something that you hadn't seen before, and it just felt very yucky, but it could be real. Mm-hmm. You know, it could be real. And that's what is the scariest thing.
Yeah.
And of course it's tone. It's brilliant direction. Yep. It's just, you're just completely manufacturing something, and it's brilliantly executed.
Yeah. It was very unique, alien, terrifying, yet also familiar at the same time. It was like taking a unique, alien, and terrifying element and plopping it down in, like, I don't want to say normal everyday life, but, you know, like something similar to that. But not that.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of could happen anywhere, although it's specific to obviously Texas.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't Texas. A sci-fi movie.
No. But I think everybody, to some degree, had felt like the isolation of being somewhere, or acknowledging, like, oh man, you're in the middle of nowhere and there's nowhere to really go.
Yeah.
And if not, the movie perfectly portrayed what that would feel like.
Yeah. You mentioned Full Metal Jacket too. Anything stand out to you about that one?
That's just a brilliant movie. I just remember, being a Kubrick fan, and there was a guy in it actually who went to my high school, Alec Baldwin. I believe he was in it.
Did you say Alec Baldwin?
Yeah. Like he was in he was in Adam Baldwin. I'm sorry. He was in My Bodyguard. Was he in that movie? I might be botching that. I gotta look that up. I'm pretty sure he was.
Oh yeah, I think he was in it.
Yeah. But regardless, I remember the hype around that movie, and I loved war films. I love thrillers. I love that genre. It wasn't Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, and he's Jane from Serenity. I had no idea. Yeah, he was young as fuck in Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah. So, there's others I remember going to see, but, obviously the line around the corner for Indiana Jones, of course, Star Wars. Mm-hmm. But, there weren't a lot of horror films released back then. Mm-hmm. You didn't get I was not going to university cinemas. My parents were not taking me down to Chicago to see, art house movies. It was never happened in my life until I, moved to LA or I was at college. It never happened. So I had to rely on the major fare that came through and/or VHS DVD, So going to the movie theater, usually it was these bigger type movies.
So those were like earlier adult years. If we were to look at the overall adult part of your life, any others really stand out to you?
All the way up to today, specifically in the genre. I've seen thousands of horror films, right?
Usually the top two or three that come to mind.
I would tell you, I would tell you right now off the top of my head, I thought about this. There's a French film called Ils, which translates to them, right? Which is a brilliant movie.
Yeah, it is.
Brilliant, right? There's a Spanish film, which I know called Wreck, which is a zombie film, one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie is so well done and so scary. And I would say maybe the top 3 scariest movies I've ever seen. And in a way sits next to how Phantasm was this unique, bizarre thing. I think Wreck really threw me for a loop. You know what? There was there's so many to think about a third. There was there was a French movie that Aja's first film, Switchblade Sisters, or Hot Tension, High Tension.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very disturbing movie. That's a great film too. I thought that movie was outstanding.
I think the first film where a antagonist used a circular saw against someone, like a big ass concrete saw. Never seen that before.
Yeah. Oh, I have to mention Martyrs.
Yes.
Ooh. I mean, that movie is...
It's a thing. It is a thing to experience.
A universe of its own. That is a really brilliant, disturbing, vile movie that I would never want to see again. But man, everyone should see that movie. Everyone should see that movie. It is so good. It is so disturbing. Mm. Now, I don't think that, for me, that's not a movie that walks up to the edge of feeling like reality. It's just so well crafted. It feels like an allegory, right? Mm-hmm. But those would be 4 movies that stand out. I mean, I love Ilse because of its simplicity. It's just such a simple concept and so well executed and elegant, and the filmmaking is just very stripped down. And I think it's a beautiful movie. I think the actress is mesmerizing. I think it's a fantastic film and really scary. Of late, when I say late, the last few years, I haven't seen everything. I've seen some stuff. I think some of it's not a big fan. I saw, not the trash people's movies, because I'll probably be begging some of these people to work with me if I send them a script. I saw, but I don't really give a shit, to be honest, anymore. I just tell it like it is. I saw, what's that movie? The guy that just directed Weapons. What's that movie he directed before?
Barbarian?
Yeah, I thought that movie was total bullshit. Just slopped together a bunch of scenes from other movies. Well executed, but fell apart at the end. I didn't think it was that scary. It was fine. I don't know.
It was fun.
I mean, I commend them for making it and the success, because it's a good thing for everybody. But I didn't think it was like the best horror film. Blown away by
it. It didn't hit for you.
Nah, and I saw it after the hype, big hype. I just didn't think it was.
I
didn't think the ending of that movie, you got to land the ending. You got to make it work. That's why when you see Ilse or Wreck, those movies land and own the ending. And I didn't think Barbarians really did, but what do I know? The guy's wildly talented, and obviously Weapons is a massive success, and really that's all that matters, isn't it?
So you said Ilse, you liked it for simplicity, and it was mesmerizing. What'd you like about Wreck?
Almost for the same reason. Wreck starts as kind of a really frenetic type thing, and the girl's intriguing, and it just is a really simple concept. And then somewhere about a third of the way, halfway in, it just kicks in, and you're in this flat, right? Or apartment building, if you will. And it's so well executed, so scary. The Hand of a Genius, what Jaime Balaguaro directed it. The ending, the creature in the attic, it kind of takes a sci-fi turn, right? Again, here we go. A little bit. Genre bending. And the thing in the attic, and you can't see, and the camera, and you got to go to night vision, and that creature is like nothing you've ever seen. That kind of an androgynous witch, brilliantly designed, horrifying. And then, just perfectly executed the end of that movie. It's one of the scariest things you'll ever see in a film, without question. Top 10 of all time, just from the depths of hell. Like, if there's hell, that thing is in hell, and you're watching it, and you believe it to be happening. I just thought the movie was brilliant, just contained. It's a brilliant film.
Okay.
Brilliant film.
What about Hot Tension?
I think scary, really well done, and felt like it was something I really hadn't seen. I mean, I guess it's in the Texas Chainsaw milieu, and that it's like this isolated farm, but it had that French component, so it felt it was just different. And again, when Aja's doing his thing, he is a fantastic filmmaker. And I think he just executed to perfection. It just had I felt like I was transported to that place, and it was frightening and unexpected, very unpredictable. I thought.
Okay. Same thing with Martyrs or something different?
Yeah, Martyrs felt like it was like if Kubrick dropped acid and made a movie. You know, it had
idea.
Yeah, it had a elevated cinematic feel. The two girls are gorgeous. I mean, perfect casting, right? You can't keep your eyes off of them. They are great in the movie. It's just unexpected. You know, it's just peeling away layers, and you buy it. Every layer you kind of buy into, even though it's absurd to some degree, right? It's you're witnessing something you've never seen before, and he holds the tension. And there's so many times when something like that can go completely off the rails and you lose the audience, and he perfectly nailed it. I mean, that movie won Cannes, I'm sure. I don't know what that guy's done since. What's his name? It's not Patrick Lussier. It's can't remember. The guy's a brilliant filmmaker.
For Hot Tension. Or I'm sorry, no, Martyrs was
Pascal Laugier?
Yeah, Pascal Laugier.
Laugier. French.
Yeah. Yes. And that movie's scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's very scary. And it's graphic.
It is that.
It is graphic. And I don't know that I'd call it a horror film.
Yeah, I would call it like an extreme horror film, maybe like French Extremity. I think it's a genre.
There you go.
But it's not French. Yeah. It's French Canadian, isn't it?
I think it is French Canadian.
Same genus,
Montreal?
different species.
Is it Montreal? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it is France. It's a good question. We have to look into it.
Yeah. So this next question is going to be over your entire life, and not just about horror, but any genre. What movie would you say you've watched more times than any other?
I've seen thousands of movies. It would have to be, I couldn't say for sure, but it would probably be one of three movies. La Samurai by Jean-Pierre Melville, Casablanca, and man, it's close I mean, I've seen like Bringing Up Baby so many times, and like Howard Hawks films. It's just too hard. How Green Was My Valley? I've seen so many times. I couldn't answer that. La Samurai would probably be number one because I've seen it a lot and watched it over and over and over again.
Okay, what do you like about that one?
It's just kind of sublime perfection. The best, I think, movie ever made. These movies that I would watch over and over again, every time you watch them, they're different. It's like magic. So that movie, I've watched it for pleasure. I've watched it to study it, and I've watched it to just zone out. And it's just a perfect film. You know, you have the ultimate auteur filmmaker, who's Jean-Pierre Melville, who's a genius. You have Alain Delon, who's like one of the greatest actors of all time, in the perfect role. And you have just these two professionals working at their peak to make what is just the perfect auteur film. I mean, it's a perfect movie in many ways. So I just love that movie. It's just hard to describe it other than that. I mean, it's magic. And then Casablanca, I think, is just perfection because it's like comfort food in a way. And it's a movie that changes every time you watch it. And I've seen it a lot. A lot. It's a great, great, great movie. You know, and there's a lot going on there. And I'm sure there are others that would use that film as well. I mean, the third one, it's just hard to categorize it because I've just watched, you know, there was a time when I've seen thousands and thousands of movies and old movies. You know, there's William Wyler movies I've seen hundreds of times and watched over and over and over and over again. They're just great films. But How Green Was My Valley by John Ford, I've seen that. Fuck, you know. But this I'm going back. Man, when I lived alone in LA, and it was just, you know, you watch a lot of films.
Well, I'm not familiar with either How Green Is My Valley or Bringing Up Baby. So what'd you like about those?
Bringing Up Baby is it's a Howard Hawks film. It's Cary Grant at his ultimate, Katharine Hepburn. And it's kind of a movie like the horror stuff, and that it's like something you've never seen. It's a screwball comedy, but it's just a really fun, it's comfort food. It's just a magical window into a different time. And it's funny as hell. It's fun. It's, the antithesis of horror. It's the opposite end of the spectrum. Part of it is just going back to see it to think like, did I really see that in that movie? Or what is the tone of the film? And I just love Howard Hawks movies. So that movie I've seen of all of his films the most. I've seen it, you know, couldn't even count, over 100 times for sure. And then what was the other? the other film, How Green Was My Valley, just John Ford, watching. I studied his movies in college, and then as years have gone, I've watched that movie has resonated the most. Just the structure, the filmmaking, where he put the camera. That was an era when the studios built everything. So the whole town is built. It's all on the back lot. There's just a magic in that movie. It's based on a book. It's an adaptation.
So it sounds like that one's more of like an auteur thing.
Yeah, I think that movie, I think it won Best Oscar. I'm pretty sure it did for Best Picture. What year would that be? 38, 39, 40, 41, somewhere in there. There's just Donald Crisp is in it. I don't know that you guys would like it too much. It is the other end of the spectrum from horror films.
A lot of the people that we talk to, they have that auteur side of them where they get very cerebral about what it is that they like. But for the purposes of our podcast, a lot of the the gut reaction is where we find a lot of the best material at in terms of coming to understand your love of a genre.
Yeah.
And actually it's been kind of difficult in that a lot of the conversation that we've been having that really hasn't come up at all. I mean, the only thing that kind of leans towards any kind of emotional connection, I think that you've mentioned, is things being different or foreign, being on the edge of reality.
I can talk to that. You want me to talk about that?
Sure.
Horror films, for me, are an unbelievable escape. And as a kid, they were an unbelievable escape because I couldn't find that anywhere else. So it's like going to an amusement park and you get on a roller coaster. A horror film for me I can watch something that is so horrific and scary. That feeling of horror is like a roller coaster ride, and then it's over and I don't have to live it. And I think when I was a kid, it was like riding a roller coaster. I liked to be scared. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't escaping from anything. I was actually trying to embrace that feeling because I knew that it wasn't real. At least as a kid, I wanted to be scared. Mm-hmm. And that's in our DNA. Every human has something that they're scared of. Mm-hmm. And movies, horror films always work and will always work because they're escapism. Mm-hmm. And they're great emotional roller coaster rides. As you get older too, they're great to watch with girls, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing better than going into a movie theater into a dark room and being scared, right? And it's the best feeling. And so for me, it was escapism, and it was like the unknown. What am I going to see? I want to be scared, and it's going to be over in 2 hours. It's a window of time, right? It's not endless. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're, driving down the highway with your car on fire towards a cliff. It's like, I got these 2 hours and I'm going to sit here and be scared. It's just a joyride. And I guess maybe in my life was so secure and stable as a kid. Maybe I needed that thrill ride. Clearly that was like a form of escape, not from anything horrible, but like to walk up to like being a daredevil, I guess, walk up to the water's edge of something dangerous without it not really being dangerous. Mm. And that felt good because it was just different. I like being scared. Now there's certain people, like my wife hates horror films. She have no interest in any of it. Zero. And I don't know why. Maybe, she was born and raised on a rural farm in the middle of Canada. So she probably doesn't want to feel, she was scared as a kid about stuff on that farm. So she probably doesn't want to relive some of it. I needed to kind of look at it and see it. And in talking to you guys, I wonder how much books had an effect on me, and the covers of books and horror magazines that were like, I remember going to the newsstand with my brother. Now I'm starting to remember some stuff. And we'd walk to this newsstand by our house, and, you had the horror magazines, and those images were scary as hell. Mm. And I was always into that. I don't know why. I wanted to see more of it. And I think movies were the entryway into that, but I didn't have that in my life. There was nothing, knock on wood, terrifying about my childhood. But so maybe it was easy for me to watch all that stuff because I knew it was just like getting onto a ride at an amusement park. Mm.
Well, you did say something that also potentially rings a bell. We've talked to a number of guests who had reported that, and at least for these other people I'll mention, they grew up in like small towns that they kind of felt trapped in, where, life was safe and boring, and for them, horror was an escape. It sounds like for you, being near Chicago, maybe you weren't out in the middle of nowhere, but in other ways your life maybe was a little too safe or boring for you, and so there
Correct.
was some
I think
escape in that manner.
yes, and I think listen, there's always a degree of us when we're growing up, for most people, that push the envelope and push the edge, right? You're pushing something, and maybe horror films are a way to push something, and like, oh well, everything else is safe and orderly and stable. Where can I find some action?
Right.
You know, like where I can't go to the bars. I'm not going to go fire cocktails. I'm not going to go, do a bag of blow. So like where can, and obviously this is before that age, but like, where's the scary stuff? That's like Halloween. Halloween is like wish fulfillment, right? Mm-hmm. But not real. You get to play game. You get to play makeup. You get to play dress up, and movies are a way to escape. And it's important because the movies also have an ending. Yeah. In an hour and a half or 2 hours, it is over and things are back to normal. If you told me that I might go into that movie theater and I'm not coming out.
And never come out, yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably not going. Or I'm going to be sucked into this movie, or, the roller coaster you could actually die on.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's even more dangerous, but this is from the comfort of a room.
Right.
So I think I think you nailed it. It was, to some degree, how do I shake things up and not feel so safe and bring some disorder and puncture my world with something that's disturbing?
You mentioned the roller coaster ride thing. That's come up in other calls too. Sandbox. We didn't talk about this earlier, but so we recently celebrated our 5th anniversary, and we were planning initially on waiting until 10th anniversary to write a book about the stuff that we've learned, to maybe give back to either the horror audience or the mainstream world, to say here's some explanation about what horror fans get out of horror. And one of our guests had suggested that maybe we might have enough already by the 50-year mark, and we do. So I'm working on that. Right. And as I've been putting this all together, I've been thinking about this roller coaster analogy, and for some reason, a different one came to mind that I think might actually be even more accurate, which is a water balloon fight.
Okay.
Because
elaborate.
Well, there's the boundary pushing of, and the excitement of, not only am I participating in this thing, but I could get hit too.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something more.
And it doesn't hurt that much.
Right. You have a little more skin in the game in a water balloon fight than you do on a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
True.
For sure.
A little more control over it too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get to push back. If somebody wrongs you get to wrong them. Mm-hmm. On a roller coaster ride, you're just right.
You're there for the ride. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not a bad analogy, actually.
Yeah. So let's see. We've kind of talked about, general common themes and why that might be important to you. The natural follow-up question to that is, why horror? Could you explore that in other genres?
What other genres are adjacent to horror for me?
Well, so for you, it's horror that gets you this feeling of being jarred out of, the safe life. Yeah. But, maybe somebody else might watch a horror movie, or might get it out of sci-fi, or trying to think of what other genres really would.
Well, I think there's for sure, all these movies are wish fulfillment, right? To some degree. I think a horror film is more escapism. It could be wish fulfillment, but a Western is wish fulfillment. Thrillers can be thrillers are, a great example. I mean, thrillers are horror films.
They're more like safe and less violent horror films, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, or they could be even more violent. Look at a movie like Dress to Kill, which is kind of a horror film, or look at like Jagged Edge, or look at, it's again, I made a movie at Netflix called Fractured a few years ago, which I really think is a vastly underrated movie. Brad Anderson directed it, and it's such a good script. And I think we did the best version of that script. It's a B movie, but it's like, you're watching a fucking train wreck. You're watching this guy's life come unhinged. It's a tragedy. It's theater, obviously. That goes without saying, but it is theater, and you don't have to live it. For most people, some of course have had tragedy in their life, but most people haven't had tragedy to the degree of what Sam Worthington has in that movie. And so in a thriller, that's a version of a thriller, but a whodunit, those types of movies are all wish fulfillment and trying to solve things or escape things.
But do they speak to you to the same level that horror does?
I think a good thriller. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, horror touches me in a different way because I think it tickles that thing that we talked about, which is like, there's darkness in the world. There are things that are intangible in the world, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we always have this thing of like heaven and hell. Some of us believe it, some of us don't, some of us vacillate about it. But I think all of us can agree there's some darkness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And horror films kind of brush up against that darkness. And maybe they're a window into something that we may evolve into, that we may see one day. But the fact that you can feel that feeling watching those movies tends to make me believe that there's some scary shit in the world that we're not capable of, connecting with.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because you have those feelings. Why are you scared? Why are you scared of that thing, of that image? Why is that horrific to you? There's something in your soul that you can't describe why you feel that way, or you can describe it, but you don't know why that feeling's there. It's like if you see a knife, you're not going to jump on a knife because your brain is telling you that's going to hurt. You have these instinctual things inside your DNA, and horror films are an expression of that. And I think trying to exercise we know this through storytelling. If we go back before movies and books and campfires with cavemen, they had stories about the darkness and scary things. Why? Trying to explain the unknown.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to exercise that feeling.
I think maybe another way to say this is that the other mental image that was coming up while you were talking was skydiving, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that's hell no.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you would, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like, someone with a knife is scarier to you than jumping out of an airplane, if that makes sense.
No. Maybe the knife analogy was wrong. Well, I wouldn't jump out of an airplane now. I bungee jumped once off a hot air balloon, but now I probably wouldn't jump out of an air. Maybe I would. I don't know. I don't know. That doesn't really scare me. But the knife analogy I use like this: if there's a needle and you're holding a needle that's like 7 inches long, are you going to put that thing towards your eye?
No.
Yeah. Why not?
Because it's a needle.
But how do you know, like instinctually, that that's bad and going to hurt you? Why do you have the mechanism to know?
Because I've had other shots.
Yeah. There's just something. There's something in our DNA and instinct to stay away from certain things.
No, I see what you mean. Yeah, like there's certain,
And I think
horror cues and
horror films allow you to put the needle in your eye without having a negative effect.
Let me rephrase what I said a minute ago about jumping out of a plane. So I think a better way to say this is they're both two kinds of pain in terms of, falling out of an airplane and hitting the ground versus the needle in the eye. There's multiple kinds of pain, but it sounds like there are certain kinds that speak to you more readily than others. If that's I
don't know if they speak to me. I would say that I would say that horror films are a form of escapism. Mm-hmm. They're great stories and a way to escape into a different world that is not real and finite.
Right. That's
finite.
the sandbox aspect of it. It's
yes,
finite.
Exactly. And I think I think this is a really important thing. And I believe you guys are probably doing this. It's the thing to really look at, in my opinion, and you're doing this, the difference between when I'm 4 and I see a horror film and when I'm 55 and I see a horror film.
Yeah.
Am I still into the genre? And how do I think about the genre? And how do the stories change? Because when you're 4, 5, 6, when I'm 7 years old, I probably should not be seeing Night of the Living Dead. Debatable for sure. But would you read to a kid at 7 years old like Moby Dick? Or that's not a great example. Would you read something equally scary to a 7-year-old kid? It's easier to watch movies, right? Much easier than to read a book. You would not read a really scary graphic book to a 7-year-old kid, probably, for the most part. It'd be too exhausting anyways. But how does that affect people? That's a whole different topic, right? Like there's all kinds of arguments and conversations and profiling about how this stuff affects people.
Probably the clearest change that happens is a lot of people have shared that, once they've had kids, then they can't go back and watch horror movies that have kids, getting hurt in them.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a common element.
For certain. But I don't know that I think that had that woman who was my babysitter, not expose me to those movies. And it was mostly her doing at that age, my age, not her age. I don't know that I would have been into horror films the way that I was. And then when I began working in the entertainment industry, those types of movies were, I wouldn't say my passion, but I had movies, and I still do in other genres. They're just easier movies to get made because they travel easier. They're easier. It's easy. It's easier to translate an English horror film to Japan. And I don't mean literally translate. I mean, watch an American horror film. The emotions of a horror film and what scares people from an American filmmaker is more global to an audience than comedy, which is very specific to cultures, or any other type of movie. Maybe not sci-fi, but so those movies tend to get made, and they're easier to make, and they're more, they travel easier.
That is something else that has come up on the call. Another thing that you touched on that's come up on these calls a lot is there's sort of two camps, if you will. There's joy-based and fear-based. And a lot of the questions that we ask are based on digging up the fear portion of it, because if it is joy-based, which it sounds like it is in your case, there's really not a lot of questions that you can ask about that. It's why are you happy? Like, you know what I'm saying? And like, you can't really dig too deep on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what you said about your babysitter introducing you to that stuff at that particular age, that is something else that's come up on the call of, if I didn't get introduced to this at a particular point in my life, then maybe I would have gotten introduced into something else, and I would have fallen in love with that instead. But it just so happens that this is what I fell in love with.
Yeah, it's a weird, I don't know, because I can't unring the bell.
Right.
You know?
And for me, the example I give is like back in like around 5th grade, 6th grade, I got introduced into hip hop. And for me, building the network of, okay, who does this song, who sampled which song, how many samples are here? There's like 3 or 4 different samples. This one connects to that song. This one connects to that song. These lyrics reference that other song. And it's that building out of that network, and that joy that I found in that is very similar to what I've heard a lot of guests talk about with the horror genre of, this actor was in this movie, this producer produced that movie, you know? Yeah. Very similar stuff.
And the music thing for me, I was heavily into music when I was a teenager, but none of it was like per se leaning towards dark horror-y stuff, right? Like I wasn't a goth kid. I wasn't deep into anything. I wasn't into like Judas Priest or metal music, any of that stuff, right? So there wasn't some transition from my media of loving horror films to my music. But I do remember a record that would play on Halloween that was like a horror record, ghostly sounds. I remember that as a young kid.
Sound effects.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
I think I have that vinyl somewhere still.
Yeah, I love that. Like when I was a kid, I loved that. And so again, I wonder if it was just this juxtaposition between a safe childhood and trying to find areas that were disturbing to be like, oh, this is a wild, cool vibe. But my music was always, I was into rock music and alternative music and consume that. And I still do. But it wasn't like I was trying to mine into the horror stuff inside my music experience. And I just wonder the time, for sure. You're influenced by your time. You're influenced by that window in the late 70s, how your media is put in front of you. It was way more interesting for me to watch a horror thing on TV than anything else. Maybe sports I would be into, but on a Saturday night, I wasn't watching Barney Miller or some shit like some comedy show like Sanford and Son. I wasn't into that.
I was raised by my grandmother, so I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Every Sunday night it was I can't remember what the first one was, but it was Murder, She Wrote, something else, and then 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
And then
now can you watch that stuff now? Can you relate to it?
Not Murder, She Wrote. I did like 60 Minutes actually.
Yeah. Well, the ticking clock sucks everybody in, right?
I always liked what's his name at the end? Fuck, I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
Andy Rooney?
Oh yeah, Andy Rooney. I'm Andy Rooney. And you like horror films because you are, whatever. Yeah.
I liked that he was very concise.
Yeah. What a gig. I can't imagine how much money he was pulling down too. I bet they paid him a fortune. That was back in that era.
PBS. I doubt he was making all that much money.
Everybody watched. No, that was CBS, wasn't it?
No, PBS.
60 Minutes?
Yeah.
Really?
I could have sworn.
You could be right.
I'm going to Google. 1 second.
No, but I feel like that media saturation for me, CBS News.
Huh. Why did I think
that? Yeah.
They sound alike.
Yeah. There's the news hour and all kinds of stuff. But I feel like that era. It certainly was those UHF channels. At least for me and my friends. And the Chicagoland thing. It was very specific. For me at least, and what I was exposed to.
That really annoys me. For some reason, I thought that was PBS, and I can't believe it wasn't. Well, I think we got a good idea of what you got out of horror and how that intersect with the genre itself. Really, the last question is just: was there anything that you thought of earlier and didn't get a chance to say? Maybe you thought of something, and the conversation took a left turn.
No. I mean, we didn't really talk about the Ring movies, which is okay. I think the Ring movie, when I first saw the VHS of the Ring movie, that was a very scary movie. That movie scared the hell out of me. I thought that was another contrabandish, like, what the fuck is this? piercing through into your reality when I watched that movie. So
it's also another very unique thing. Like, nobody had ever done a haunted videotape thing before.
Right.
Nah, there was Poltergeist, but it wasn't apples to apples. No one had ever done and it was so well executed and abstract, and it was just a terrifying experience. So, no, I think we touched on it. I've never been to a shrink or psychoanalyzed, so this was interesting.
No charge.
So, yeah, well, I enjoy it, but it is nice to look back and think about these things because I start to remember pieces. So, this is fun. I think you guys are doing a good thing. Smart.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we like it. Cool. Well, appreciate your time. Thank you for hanging out with us and talking.
Always, guys. I love what you're doing. Anything I can do to help, reach out. You have my email, obviously. Reach out, and best of luck. If you need any more quotes, let me know.
Thank you. Before we hit the closing, again, you want to let people know what you're. Well, I trying to remember. Did you share anything that you were currently working on?
Oh yeah, I did a broad-based thing, just working on. There's development. There's some stuff I can't talk about, and I don't want to curse it. No horror.
I know the feeling. Curse. Normally, we don't like to talk about people we're going to interview until the conversation has been had.
And I usually start rattling stuff off, and 90% of it never happens anyways. So you gotta.
Well, we'll put together a bio page for you and link to whatever it is that you want to link to. If anybody wants to catch up with you, we can just have them come to our horrormakesushappy.com. You go to the episodes page and then scroll down to your name, click that, and that'll take you to whatever you want us to have them link to.
Right. I appreciate it.
Again, thank you. Thank you to anybody out there listening. Come to Horror Makes Us Happy. Do what we just said to follow Andrew. And other than that, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, all the fun stuff.
Thanks, guys.